All right, guys, buckle up. This is a long one. We're going to be doing word problems, and there are 3 parts to this word problem. The first part we're going to be doing is finding 2 numbers. You can follow along in your notes, obviously. But when you do word problems in here, I want them done a certain way. I want them broken up into 3 pieces. So you're going to notice I'm going to actually divide my each word problem into 3 pieces. So this first one, finding 2 numbers. My first part of this problem is to define a variable. So one, we always read the question, and it says the larger of 2 numbers is 4 more than the smaller number. All that sounds like to me is a lot of this. I don't understand it, so I'm going to dissect it. So what it says, the larger of 2 numbers. The larger of 2 numbers. So that means, how many numbers am I dealing with? 2. I have a first number, and I have a second number. Or I have a small number. I can be more specific. Actually, I am going to be more specific. And I'm going to say I have a small number, and I have a large number, because it says the larger of 2 numbers. Now, here's what I do. I say which one of these larger numbers and smaller numbers is not being talked about. It says the larger of 2 numbers is 4 more than twice the smaller. So the large number is being talked about. The one that says no information is the small number. So I'm going to put my small number as x because I don't know anything about it. And now when I read it, it says the larger of 2 numbers is 4 more than the smaller one. So if the small one is x, the large one is x plus 4. And I have identified now the small number and the large number. So that's in my first section is I'm going to define a variable. In my second section, I'm going to set up my equation and I'm going to solve it. So I'm going to keep reading, and it says if the sum of the numbers is 74, if the sum of the numbers. So it says if you take the sum of these 2 numbers, it's going to equal 74. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the sum. X plus 4 equals 74. I've identified my variables. I've set up my equation because it says if I add them, it's going to equal 74. And now I'm going to solve it. So when I solve it, I have 2x plus 4 equals 74. I subtract both sides by 4, and I get 2x equals 70, divide by 2, and x equals 35. So I've solved for x. But my question is asking, find the numbers. So now what I have to do is I have to use this and plug it back in. So what does 35 stand for? X equals 35. And what is x? It's my small number. So over here I'm going to put small number is 35. Large number is 35 plus 4, which is 39. And now I have solved that word problem. And I've divided it into 3 pieces. Defining a variable, setting it up, and putting it back into words. All right, let's do number 2. Actually, let's skip to number 3. Okay? So I'm dividing it into 3 sections. I'm going to define my variables first. And it says the larger of 2 numbers is 1 more than 4 times the smaller number. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about 2 numbers. 1 small, 1 large. So I'm going to put small, and I'm going to put large. And then I ask, which number's not being talked about? The larger number is being talked about because it says the larger is 1 more than 4 times the smaller. So I'm going to put small number's x. I know nothing about my small number. But I do know that the larger is 1 more than 4 times the smaller. 1 more than 4 times the smaller. So that's how I've defined my variables. Now it says if the sum is 106. So that means sum is add up my small number plus my large number, and that's going to be 106. And now I'm going to solve it. I get 5x plus 1 equals 106, subtract 1, 5x equals 105, and x equals 21. So now I've solved it, but this last piece is bringing meaning to it. It's telling me that x stands for my small number, so x is 21, so my small number is 21, and my large number is 4 times x plus 1. So 4 times 21 plus 1. So 84 plus 1 is 85. And I can always check my answer here. I can see the larger is 4 more than twice the number. So if twice the number is 42 plus 4, 4 times 21 is 84 plus 1 of my smaller, and the sum is 106. It checks out, therefore it is correct. Okay? So let's look at number 7. Okay? The Buffalo Bills scored 24 more than twice the number of points that the Dolphins scored. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about Buffalo Bills, and I'm talking about Miami Dolphins. So Buffalo Bills, Miami Dolphins. Who is not being talked about? I know the Buffalo Bills scored 24 more than twice the number of points, but I don't know how many Miami Dolphins scored, so I'm going to put an X on Miami Dolphins. And the Buffalo Bills scored 24 more than twice the number of points. So 24 more than twice the number of points. And then, so I've defined my variables. They both scored 66, so both teams added together 24 plus 2x plus x equals 66. And now I'm going to solve, and I get 3x plus 24 equals 66. Subtract 24 on both sides. I get 3x equals 42. X then equals 14. So what do I know? X stands for Miami Dolphins, so I know that Miami scored 14. Buffalo scored, what am I going to do? I'm going to plug in 14 for X, and I get 28 plus 24, and so I get 52. And then do they add to 66? They do, so I've checked my answer. Okay, so we did a few problems together there. All right, so you can work a few of those, see how you do. Hang on, guys, sorry. All right, so let's go. Number 8 sometimes gets tricky with the students, so I do want to go over number 8 with you. And we're going to set them up. Now, defining the variable is so incredibly important because once you define the variable, it is set. You don't change with it. So it says there are 10 less red Skittles and orange Skittles in the bag. So I've got red Skittles and I've got orange Skittles. Which one's not being talked about? Orange Skittles. So orange is going to be X. There are 10 less red Skittles. So less than is a turnaround word. So X minus 10. Now my variables are set. Now I'm going to do a literal translation. The orange Skittles are also twice the number of red Skittles. The orange Skittles are is the same thing as equals. Twice the number of red Skittles. Red Skittles are X minus 10. So twice the number of red Skittles. So look at my equation. My variables don't change. I can't change my variables. But my literal translation, the orange Skittles are twice the number of red Skittles. See that? And now I'm going to use distributive property to solve 2x minus 20. I'm going to move this x over, and I get 0 equals x minus 20. Add 20 to both sides. 20 equals x. Do a little symmetric property to get x equals 20. So there are 20 orange Skittles, and there's going to be 10 red Skittles because I plugged 20 in for x minus 10. All right, so hopefully that'll get you through that first part of the word problems. The second part is perimeter of a rectangle, and we've already talked a lot about perimeter in class. Perimeter is all the sides of the rectangle added together, not just half of it, all of it. So when you have a shape, over here in the first section, I want you to draw the shape. So it says the length of a rectangle. Oh, we're talking about a rectangle. I'm going to draw a picture of the rectangle. It says the length is 6 more inches than its width. Who's not being talked about? We got width and length. Width is not being talked about, so it's going to be an X. And watch what I do. I'm going to fill in my dimensions. I'm putting an X here and an X here. The length is 6 inches more. So X plus 6 and X plus 6. Now it says if the perimeter is 24. Well, we know perimeters, all of them added up. So if I draw my picture, I'm not going to write X plus 6 plus X plus 6 plus X plus X equals 24. All I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my picture and I'm going to use my picture and have it work for me. So I'm going to look at how many X's. 1, 2, 3, 4X. How many constants? Plus 12, and all that equals 24. So I can save myself some time and just look at my picture. And now I subtract 12, and I get 4X equals 12. X then equals 3. So what is 3? My width is not just 3, it's 3 inches. So width is 3 inches, and length is going to be 3 plus 6, which is 9 inches. You've got to make sure you fill in those unit of measurements or it will be wrong. Okay, so that's perimeter. Let's scroll down, and these really aren't that difficult, so I'm not spending a lot of time, but yet I do want you to get a couple of practice problems in. So number 13, again, we're dealing with a rectangle. And it says the length is 5 less than twice its width. Width is not being talked about. So we got a width and a length. Width is not being talked about, so I'm going to call it X. And it says the length is 5 less than twice the width. 5 less than twice the width. So twice the width minus 5, because less than is a turnaround word. So if this length is 2x minus 5, this length is 2x minus 5. And now the perimeter is 56 inches, so I'm going to add them all together. So I have 2x and x and 2x and x, which is 6x. And my constant terms are negative 10 combined, and that equals 56. So when I add 10 to both sides, I get 6x equals 66. X then equals 11. But here's where I put my language in this last box. So the width is 11 inches. And the length is 22 minus 5. And so when I get 22 minus 5, I get 17 inches. And students, when they check their answer, a lot of times they get a little bit lazy. And they add these and they say, oh, 28, that's not right. That's not my perimeter. Remember, perimeter is 2 of the dimensions. So if I multiply it by 2, 56 is the perimeter, and that adds up. So it checks out. So again, these are also easy to check. Okay. All right, the last set of word problems when we talk about them are going to be consecutive numbers. So I know you guys did this last year. So think back what consecutive means. It means one right after the other. So one right after the other. So examples of consecutive numbers would be like 1, 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. Examples of consecutive even numbers would be 1, 3, 5, 7. No, it's not. No, it's not. Those aren't even. What am I thinking? No. Even is 2, 4, 6, 8. Who do we appreciate? Consecutive odd is 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. Okay? So those are examples, and that's what consecutive numbers mean. Let's take a look on how we solve them. So again, we're still setting them up in those 3 sections. So can you see the top of that one? Let's do that. All right, so 3 sections. So now it says the sum of 2 consecutive numbers. So consecutive means in order. So I've got a first number, and I have a second number. The sum of 2 consecutive numbers is 123. Well, do I know the first one? No, I don't. So I'm going to call it X. The next one is just me adding 1. So if my first number is X, my second number is going to be X plus 1. X plus 1. Okay, because if that's 3, then the second number is 3 plus 1, which is 4, and that's consecutive. So now it says the sum is 123. So if I add these up, x plus 1, I get 123. So I get 2x plus 1 equals 123. Subtract 1, 2x equals 122, divide by 2, and x equals 61. So my numbers are 61, and then the next one after that is 62, and I'm going to check real quick. If I add those up, does it add to 123? It does, so it checks out. Okay? So 14 is done. Oh, and it erased, of course, because I didn't try. Okay, now let's go to number 16, when it talks about consecutive even numbers. So consecutive even numbers, remember, it goes from 2 to 4 to 6, so we're skipping one. So consecutive even numbers, I know I'm talking about two numbers, my first number and my second number, right? First even, second number. My first one's going to be x, but what's my second number going to be? If it goes from 2 to 4, to go from 2 to 4, it's plus 2, right? Your 1 is 2, 2 plus 2 is 4. Okay, so my second one is going to be x plus 2 because it's even. And now the sum's 54, so it's going to be x plus 2 equals 54. 2x plus 2 equals 54. So subtract 2, and I get 2x equals 52. X then equals 26. So 26 and 28 are going to be my consecutive even numbers. A good way to check this is, one, make sure they're even, and then do they add up to 54? They do. So that's good. Right? Now, let's do a consecutive odd one and see what the difference is on setting that up. Okay, I know I'm dealing with two consecutive odd numbers, so I still have a first number and a second number. I just don't know what they are. So if the first one is x, what is my second one? It's odd. But think about this. If you went from 1 to 3, and this is x, how do you get from 1 to 3? What's your pattern here? You're adding 2. So you're still adding 2, x plus 2. It looks the same as even. You're still adding 2 because you're still skipping a number. So consecutive odd is very similar with consecutive even, how you set it up, because your pattern is you skip 2. So the sum is 128, so I do x plus 2 equals 128. So I get 2x plus 2 equals 128. Subtract 2. I get 2x equals 126, and then x, of course, equals 63. And it's odd. So 63, the next one is 65, and do they add to 128? They do, so it checks out. I know I'm going through this part fast because you already know how to solve equations. So that's why I'm kind of jumping through this so we can get to the meat of this lesson. All right, now let's do consecutive 3. Let's do 3 consecutive odd numbers. I want one with 3. So we have 1, 2, 3 numbers. The first one's x. We know the second one's going to be x plus 2. A lot of times students say that this one is x plus 2, but that's not. Let's look at my pattern. My pattern, if I had 1, 3, 5, if this is x, 3 is x plus 2 because it takes the original number and you add 2. That's how we're getting 3. But to get to 5, the next one, it's going to be not x plus 2, but to go from the original to 5 is I'm adding 4. So it's x plus 4. So here, my first one's x, my second one's x plus 2, my third one is x plus 4 because I got to go from here to here. So my fourth one would go from here to here, which would be x plus 6. So notice that pattern. So 3 consecutive odd numbers, they're equal to 57. So now I'm adding them up, and I get 3x plus 6 equals 57. Subtract 6, 3x equals 51. X then equals 17. So now we have 17, 19, and 21. And do those add up? 67, 57? Yes, they do. So those are my numbers. Okay? All right. Last one we're going to do is 20 because it could be tricky, but it's not tricky once you set them up. All right, long video. I know. Stick with me. We're almost there. All right, so 3 consecutive numbers. 1, 2, 3. Consecutive numbers. Now, this isn't even or odd. It's just consecutive numbers. So if the first one's x, the second one's x plus 1, the third one is x plus 2. That's 3 consecutive integers. Now, notice, Once these are set, they are set in stone. My computer just blacked out, so sorry. All right, so once they're set in stone. So now we go over here and we're going to read what it's asking. It says the sum of three consecutive numbers is 33 more than the smallest of the numbers. So the sum of all of these, 3x plus 3, that's the sum of these, equals 33 more than the smallest of the numbers. So x plus 33. So that equation looks a little different, but I'm reading it verbatim. The sum of three consecutive numbers is 33 more than the smallest. And now I can solve, and I subtract x on both sides to get 2x plus 3 equals 33, minus 3. I get 2x equals 30, x equals 15. So 15, 16, and 17 are my numbers there. Okay? So if you have questions on any of those, let me know. But otherwise, good luck on your homework.